Everyone in the auction hall thought the dragon was worthless, a broken creature meant to be burned and forgotten. 3 credits. That's all it took for a mechanic named Yalan to save something the galaxy had already thrown away. But the real shock didn't come from the dragon's scars. It came the moment Yalan knelt beside it. Because instead of cowering, the useless dragon roared, a roar so ancient, so powerful, it made an entire space station freeze. And suddenly, everyone realized this creature wasn't defective, it was remembering. If you're hooked already, hit like so the algorithm doesn't bury this story. And if you love HFYTales where humans refuse to back down, go ahead and subscribe. It helps more than you'd think. Share this with someone who enjoys cosmic scale rebellions because this one? It only gets wilder from here. JALien had spent enough years on Station Helios 9 to know one universal rule of the galaxy. If something is alive and broken, the universe tosses it away faster than scrap metal. He hated the biological auctions. Every time he walked past the towering cargo gates and smelled that mix of fear, disinfectant, and cheap coolant, a part of him wanted to turn around. But his air recycler had exploded the night before, literally, with a small and insulting puff of smoke, and he needed the credits from selling his salvage. So here he was, standing at the far back of the hall, trying desperately not to look at the cages. The auctioneer's voice crackled through the speakers. Bored and metallic. Lot 47 Gamma, draconian specimen, non-functional. Severe genetic underperformance. Recommended pause, immediate termination. Jalen's head snapped up. A dragon? He shouldn't have cared. Dragons were luxury weapon symbols of imperial wealth. They weren't supposed to be here, dumped with defective cleaning drones and half-grown war beasts. But then handlers wheeled the cage forward, and whatever Yalan expected, this wasn't it. The creature inside was small for its species, barely the size of a mining buggy. Its scales were a dull, sickly matte gray. Its wings were thin, folded in like broken fans. Its ribs showed. Its head hung low, like gravity itself was pressing down on it. Everything about it screamed, starved, neglected, unwanted. But then its eyes lifted. Golden, bright, focused. They locked onto Yalan with an intensity that made the noise of the auction hall fade to nothing. Those weren't the hollow eyes of a creature bred for obedience. There was someone in there. Someone desperate, terrified, and aware. The auctioneer droned on. Starting bid, 5 credits. Nothing. Not even the organ harvesters bothered scanning it. Too underdeveloped, too weak, too useless. Yalan felt his chest tighten. He didn't know why. Maybe it was those eyes. Maybe it was the way every species here stepped back like the dragon carried a disease. Maybe it was because he'd grown up around humans who saved stray animals even when they had nothing themselves. His AI assistant chimed in his ear, voice dry as ever. Reminder, you have 14 credits left. That is barely enough for food, and you still need to repair. I know, Yalan muttered. The auctioneer sighed, ready to move on. Any bid? Any at all? Yalan didn't think. He just raised his hand. 3 credits. The silence that followed wasn't normal silence. It was the kind where everyone wonders whether the human has finally lost his mind. The auctioneer blinked. 3 credits. Going once. Going twice. Sold to the human mechanic. Buyer is reminded termination must be completed within 48 hours per draconian protocol. Yalan ignored the looks. He walked forward. Every step made the dragon shrink back, trembling in its too small cage. The closer he got, the clearer the truth became. This dragon wasn't defective, it was traumatized. He crouched low, voice steady. Hey, I'm not here to hurt you. The dragon made a soft, confused rumble that wasn't quite a growl. More like a question, one nobody had ever answered. Yalan unlocked the cage and gently guided the whole container onto his grav sled. The dragon didn't lunge or snap. It just watched him, muscles coiled not for attack, but for expected pain. 20 minutes later, he slid the cage into his workshop bay. It wasn't luxurious, just a converted cargo pod with tools, a bunk, and a cluttered workbench. But it was clean. It was warm, and most importantly, no one here wanted the dragon dead. When he opened the cage door, the creature stepped out shakily, claws scraping softly on metal flooring. Welcome to your new, temporary home, Yalan said. The dragon stared at him, wings half-tucked, tail pulled close. A creature taught its entire life to expect nothing but cruelty. Yalin grabbed a scanner, old, cheap, flickering but functional. Let's see what's really wrong with you. For hours he took readings. No sudden movements, no loud noises. He talked softly, not because he expected a response, but because silence felt cruel. By midnight he sat at his bench, surrounded by old datapads showing diagrams of draconian genetics. Half of the files were restricted, but Yalin had his ways. What he found made his stomach twist.
Jalen grabbed a scanner. Old, cheap, flickering but functional. Let's see what's really wrong with you. For hours he took readings. No sudden movements. No loud noises. He talked softly, not because he expected a response, but because silence felt cruel. By midnight he sat at his bench, surrounded by old datapads showing diagrams of draconian genetics. Half of the files were restricted, but Jalen had his ways. What he found made his stomach twist. The dragon's fire glands? Functional, just shut down from starvation. Its wings? Not defective, simply never exercised. Its neural readings? Higher than most Dyson-bound animals. Its fear response? Off the charts. They didn't break you, he whispered, glancing over at the dragon in the corner. They just never gave you a chance. The dragon watched him with those golden eyes, unblinking. You are not defective. Jalen said louder this time. You're alive, and that matters. He got up slowly, heating a protein pack. His good one, the kind he only had 2 of left. He set it gently on the floor and stepped back. Nothing happened. Then, finally, the dragon's nostrils twitched. Hunger pierced fear. It crawled forward and began to eat with frantic, shaking bites. Easy, Jalen murmured. There's more where that came from. And slowly, something shifted. Hours passed. Days. Jalen talked. About Earth gravity, his old job fixing fishing boats, how space coffee tasted like burnt rubber, and why humans kept old things even when they were broken. On the 3rd day, when Jalen approached with another warm meal, the dragon looked up and rasped one thing. Jalen. The sound was rough, like a voice forced through sandpaper, but it was unmistakably a word. His name. Jalen froze. Did you just? The dragon swallowed, then tried again. Jalen. He laughed, not because it was funny, but because his brain had no other way to process the shock. You can talk. Holy stars, you can actually talk. The dragon tilted its head. Talk. Jalen. His throat tightened. You're not just smart, you're aware. That night, Jalen added soft lights to the workshop, cleared space for the dragon to stretch, and set up warm bedding against the far wall. He watched as the creature slowly curled up, less afraid than before. And then came the moment he didn't expect. As Jalen shut down his tools at night, the dragon spoke again, voice clearer, like a memory returning. Why? Jalen, help? The question hit harder than any plasma shot. Jalen swallowed. Because you needed help. And where I come from, we don't throw away someone just because they're hurting. The dragon blinked slowly, absorbing that. Humans help. Most of us try, Jalen said. We're stubborn like that. The dragon lowered its head, not in fear this time, but in something almost like trust. And for the first time since the auction, Jalen felt a spark of something dangerous. Hope. Station Helios. 9 had never been quiet, but the silence that followed the knock on Jalen's workshop door felt heavy enough to crack metal. The dragon, who now responded to the name Ember, froze mid-stretch. Its wings compressed tight against its sides, eyes narrowing into thin gold slits, not with fear this time, but warning. Jalen wiped grease from his hands and approached the door with the sinking feeling of a man walking toward a cliff. He didn't need a scanner to know who stood outside. Draconian inspectors didn't knock unless they came with a death order. The door slid open. A towering draconian stood framed in the workshop lights. 8 feet of armored scales, deep purple and polished, the kind only high-ranking enforcers wore. 2 security drones hovered at his back, weapons glowing a faint predatory blue. Human mechanic Jalen Rowe. The inspector rumbled, voice like grinding stone. I am Velthrian of the Dynasty Enforcement Council. Jalen didn't step aside. What do you want? The Draconian raised a datapad, glowing with official seals. You are in possession of genetic property designated Lot 47 Gamma. Under Draconian law, that specimen should have been terminated 17 days ago. You have illegally withheld it. I am here to execute final protocol. Behind Jalen, Ember's low growl vibrated the air. The inspector's eyes flicked past Jalen. Move aside, human. No. One word. It hung there like a challenge no sane human would issue. Velthrian's jaw tightened. You are obstructing Dynasty authority, and you're trying to kill someone who doesn't deserve it. She is not someone, the inspector snapped. She is genetic material, a defective product. Ember's growl deepened. Not defective. The voice was broken, but clear. Velthrian actually paused, pupils contracting in disbelief. You taught it mimicry? She taught herself. Jalen corrected. She speaks because she understands. That is impossible. Then come inside, Jalen said, stepping back. See for yourself. There was a moment, brief, tense, where the inspector considered simply ordering the drones to fire. But curiosity, or maybe arrogance, won over. Velthrian stepped into the workshop. The door sealed behind him. Ember stood tall in the center of the room, wings half extended, bronze scales catching every scrap of light. She wasn't cowering anymore. She wasn't trembling. She was ready. Velthrian drew a sleek plasma carbine from his belt. This execution will be swift. Jalen moved instantly, stepping between the weapon and Ember. You'll have to kill me first. Human, the inspector hissed. Your species is reckless but not suicidal. Move. No. The drones floated closer, ready to stun. Jalen felt sweat bead along his spine. He was one jolt away from collapsing, and they both knew it. And then Ember spoke. Jalen, let him come. Jalen turned, stunned. Ember. The dragons gazed in waver. This ends today. Something in her voice, old, ancient, made the hairs on Jalen's neck stand. He swallowed hard but stepped aside. Velthrian leveled the carbine at Ember's head. Specimen 47 Gamma. Do you understand the charge? I understand, Ember said. Her golden eyes locked onto his, unblinking. I understand Dynasty kills what it fears. Defects, he corrected. Voices, Ember countered. Choices. Memories. The inspector's snarl echoed off the metal walls. Enough. He raised a weapon, and Jalen did the most unthinkable thing in the galaxy. He knelt, not to Velthrian, not to surrender. He knelt before Ember, both palms on the floor, head bowed, neck exposed, a gesture older than any empire, a human sign of absolute trust. Velthrian recoiled in disgust. What are you doing, human? Jalen's voice shook but didn't break, showing her what she deserves. Ember's breath caught, a sharp inhale that trembled with emotion Jalen didn't fully understand. Jalen kept his head down. I'm sorry, Ember. I can't fight an empire. I can't break their laws. But I can show you. I'm not afraid of you. And I never will be. The room held its breath. Velthrian stared, baffled. You kneel before a defective creature? She's not defective, Jalen whispered. She's alive. And she's my friend. Then came the breath. Warm. Close. Directly at the back of his neck. Every instinct screamed danger. Every cell in his body told him not to trust a dragon's jaws inches from his spine. He didn't move. And Ember whispered. Jalen sees Ember. Not cage. Not weapon. Not property. A heartbeat. And then she roared. Not loud. Not angry. Primordial. The sound was so ancient, so deep that the walls vibrated. Dust lifted from the floor. The air shook. The drones dropped instantly, their circuits fried by the harmonic frequency. Velthrian staggered backward. Carbine clattered into floor as fear, real, instinctive fear, ripped across his face. What are you? He gasped. Ember didn't answer. Her wings unfurled fully, a span far larger than anything bred in Dynasty labs. Her scales rippled with color, bronze deepening into fiery red, edges glowing like heated metal. And when she opened her jaws again, the universe seemed to hold its breath. White fire erupted, not orange, not red, white, the color of mythical free dragons. The flame line that Draconians insisted never existed. The fire didn't burn Jalen. It flowed around him like light around his shadow, bending but never touching. Velthrian fell to one knee, not in respect, but in primal terror. "This is not possible," he whispered. "White fire is legend." Ember stepped forward, towering over him. "No," she said softly. "It is memory." The inspector stumbled back, scrambling toward the door like a creature suddenly aware of how small he truly was. "You cannot hide her," he stammered. "The dynasty will come. They will burn this station to the ground." "Then tell them the truth," Jalen said, rising to stand beside Ember, not behind her, not in front. "Beside, tell them what you saw." Velthrian's eyes darted between them, fear warring with disbelief. "You kneel to a dragon?" "No," Jalen answered. "I kneel to a person." Ember lowered her head, a soft rumble echoing from her chest. Not a threat, not a growl, something closer to gratitude. Velthrian fled. The moment the door slammed shut, Jalen exhaled shakily. His legs trembled so badly he had to lean against Ember's side for support. "Ember," he whispered. "What was that?" The dragon's eyes flicked down to him, glowing like molten gold. "Remembering." She glanced toward the sealed door. "And they will come now." Jalen swallowed. "All of them?" "Yes." "And we can't run." "No." Jalen took a shaky breath, staring at the scorch marks on the ceiling where ancient flame had awakened. "Well," he muttered, voice dry, "that's not ideal." Ember huffed a soft puff of smoke that could have been a laugh. "Jalen," she said gently, "fire spreads." And outside the workshop walls, alarms began to blare. The dynasty was coming, and this time they wouldn't be sending just one inspector. Helios 9 wasn't built for wars. It was a salvage hub, a forgotten station nobody cared about unless they needed cheap parts or a place to hide. But on the morning after Ember's white fire shook the walls, the entire galaxy suddenly cared a lot. Jalen barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard Ember's roar echoing in his skull, a sound powerful enough to overload military drones and terrify a draconian enforcer into retreat. At sunrise cycle, the station shuddered with a sound Jalen had hoped he'd never hear. A war fleet dropping out of FDL. Alarms flared across the station. Red lights bathed the hallways. Dock workers ran for shelter. Windows dimmed automatically to protect civilians from the sight of weapons locking onto them from orbit. 12 draconian warships. Enough plasma cannons to reduce Helios, 9 to glowing dust. Ember stood silently beside him, wings tucked close, tail coiled tight. Not out of fear, but focus. "They will try to take me," Ember said quietly. "They'll try to kill you," Jalen corrected. "And maybe anyone who helped you." Ember's eyes narrowed, gold turning molten. "Then we show them truth." Jalen swallowed. "Truth doesn't always stop weapons." "No," Ember agreed, "but people might." By midday, the station's docking ring was clogged with small ships, cargo haulers, civilian transports, even battered mining vessels. Humans from all corners of known space had arrived, answering the call without ever being asked, because humans didn't need permission to help someone hurting. The moment the video of Jalen kneeling before Ember hit the networks, it spread like wildfire. Humans saving so-called defective creatures, humans refusing to follow disposal protocols, humans choosing empathy over efficiency. And they were all coming here. Jalen stared out at the growing crowd in the cargo bay. Humans of every background, every job, every homeworld, each bringing a being they'd saved. A Krell drone clutching a chessboard. A Vrexian war beast leaning gently into the hand of the man who rescued it. A floating jellyfish-like creature hovering close to the girl who'd refused to let it be thrown away. Ember moved through them, voice soft, encouraging, as if she'd been born to guide rather than destroy. "You did this!" Rebecca, the xenobiologist, murmured as she walked up beside Jalen. You lit a fuse no one knew existed. Ember did it, Jalen said. I just cared, I guess. Rebecca gave him a small smile. That's usually how revolutions start. At hour 15, the Draconian shuttle finally detached from the war fleet and descended toward Helios 9. Not one shuttle. Dozens. Workers, handlers, transport pilots, low-caste Draconians who had watched defective creatures die their whole lives and never dared question why until now. Their expressions were a mix of fear, guilt, and something Jalen hadn't expected. Hope. Velthrian was among them, armor removed, scales dulled, standing not as an enforcer but as a witness. You called, he said quietly, and they came. We didn't call, Jalen replied. They chose. Velthrian lowered his head. That is what frightens a High Council most. Choice. But the moment that changed everything came hours later, when the next ship arrived, a civilian transport bearing hundreds of lower-caste Draconian families, parents carrying younglings, elders walking slowly, leaning on canes, entire lineages fleeing the very empire that claimed to own them. The leader, Kethri, old, silver-scaled, dignified, approached Ember directly. We seek sanctuary, she said. We can no longer participate in the quiet genocide our people have committed for centuries. Ember bowed her head, a gesture no dragon bred by the dynasty would ever have given. You are welcome, she said softly. All who seek truth are welcome. When Kethri wept, so did several other Draconians. And Jalen realized then that Ember wasn't just a dragon reclaiming ancient memories. She was something far larger, a symbol. The High Council panicked. They demanded their war fleet open fire. But the fleet commander, a noble named Rexthor, refused. His voice crackled through open channels for the entire galaxy to hear. I have reviewed the evidence. I have spoken to witnesses. I will not fire on civilians who are revealing truths our empire hid for millennia. That single refusal cracked the dynasty's armor. And through the crack, light poured. When the High Council finally arrived, 3 members in ceremonial armor, they did not walk into a room of obedient property. They walked into a crowd of intelligent beings who had found their voices. All because a human knelt. Ember stepped forward. You took our ancestors, she said, voice resonant and calm. You broke their minds. You cut their freedom from their bones. You called it improvement. The council shifted uncomfortably. But we remembered. Ember continued. We always remembered. And you fear that memory. Falver, an aging counselor with a scar across his snout, actually cried. We were told the wild dragons were beasts, he whispered. Primitive animals. We were taught we civilized you. You tamed us, Ember replied, but you did not erase us. Negotiations lasted 2 weeks. Shouts, tears, walkouts, rewritten documents, threats, debates that lasted until dawn cycles. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't clean. Change never was. But eventually, something new emerged. The Recognition Accord. A galactic framework stating, any being who shows intelligence or self-awareness has rights. No matter how they were made. No matter who claims to own them. It wasn't everything. But it was a beginning. 6 months later, Jalen found himself loading supplies onto a sleek diplomatic ship. A gift from Earth. One he still felt unqualified to touch, let alone pilot. Ember watched him pack, wings folded neatly, scales shimmering bronze gold in the station lights. Ready? Jalen asked. Ember stretched her wings, now powerful, no longer tight and fragile. To fly beside humans instead of behind cages, she said, always ready. Jalen chuckled softly, shaking his head. I still can't believe this started because I looked at you for 2 seconds in that auction. Ember blinked slowly. Jalen asked why Ember looked back, she said. Why Ember chose him. Yeah, he said quietly. Why did you? The dragon lowered her head until her muzzle was inches from his face. Because I saw your eyes, Ember said, and I saw someone who does not fear fire, only injustice. Jalen swallowed hard. Dragons kneel to no one, Ember said, but we fly beside those who see us. She extended one wing over him, a gesture of protection and partnership more sacred than any oath. Come, she said, the galaxy waits. Together, they stepped into the ship, Forge Station Helios. 9 shrank behind them, but the movement had ignited. Humans choosing kindness in a universe that found cruelty easier, spread across star systems like wildfire, white fire, ancient fire, a fire that refused to die because one human knelt not to submit, but to recognize a life worth saving, and that, Jalen thought as the stars stretched into hyperspace, was the most human thing of all.